The story.
I knew my life was not right. I stole, I drank, I swore, I did so many wrong things. I was a hard-hearted person. And so I came back, I knelt down, and I put my head down just so my mom wouldn't see these tears falling. And then God speaks to me, and he said, "Donna, you looked everywhere else for love, but I loved you, and I died for your sins."
G'day, I'm Jimmy Colefax. Welcome to The Story. Well, today we have part 2 of our conversation with Tom and Donna Cole. As we heard last time, both of them struggled with same-sex attraction in their teen years. Tom shared his story of how he eventually became a Christian, and then he met Donna, who, when we ended, was sharing her story of growing up in a very dysfunctional home. At that time, in her confused mind, she began to come to the conclusion that she was born with an attraction to the same sex, and nothing could be done about it. Now, we'll hear more of Donna's story, but before we begin, I just want to remind parents that once again, due to the adult themes of sexuality being discussed, today's program is not recommended for younger listeners. Once again, Donna and Tom Cole are chatting with Eric Scatterbo in our Melbourne studios.
So at that time, when I realized I could not receive from a man, and I gave my heart to this woman, I realized I'm born this way. And I told my mom, there's nothing I can do about it. I told my family, and I'm always been a straightforward person, so...
No, let me just back up a little bit. So you couldn't receive from a man, so what does that mean?
It meant that I just didn't seem to fit in. That's the only way I can explain
you
it.
didn't trust.
No, I did not trust.
Well, obviously because of so many stepfathers who were untrustworthy.
But at the time, I wouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have put 2 and 2 together that, I have trust issues. It's like, I can't let this man in my life. I have no real feelings for him. I have feelings for women. So until you really know the Lord, you wouldn't think that way. I'm just like, I'm born this way. I get it now. It all makes sense. This is why I cannot receive from this man. And so I went headlong into that. And really, there were a couple memories in my life that really solidified this for me. And they're so small, but the enemy does not play fair. He takes our hurts and pain, he can twist it, bring a lie in, and we will believe it. And so when I was around 6th grade, I remember me and some of our girlfriends, we were all out on the playground and we lifted our shirts. We all thought it was funny. And then when I was in my teen years, I put my hand on my friend's leg just for a moment, and sexual feelings came, and I took my hand off because, again, until 18, I never even dated because, of course, trust issues. But from those 2 things, I so thought, and then, of course, the 28-year-old man and then my friends, I realized, I'm gay. I'm born this way. It all makes sense. And so I moved in with my girlfriend, lived with her, then had other relationships because, of course, it didn't work out. I'm so broken. I really can't trust anyone, not just men.
Heterosexual or homosexual?
No, the Lord... Once I came to know him, he started showing me areas in my life. And so during the time of my mother letting so many men in, most were absolutely drunk kind of guys, partiers.
Losers.
Yes, but one was a good man. And so he came into our lives and he took care of my mom. He even had a job. Most of these men didn't have jobs and they were much younger than my mom. My mom always looked young and beautiful, so she'd always get men at least 10 years younger than her. So they're irresponsible young men. But this man worked, took care of us. But he was only around 6 to 8 months. All the men were only around about that time, other than those 2 stepfathers were a little bit longer. But he left right after Christmas. My mom didn't feel worthy of that kind of love. She's still broken and pushed him away. And I remember it was after Christmas, and I took out all the gifts that he bought us because my mom was very poor. And I took a big black marker and I wrote all over them from JC. That was his name. And in the natural, this would look very rebellious. Like, look at this little girl taking this black marker. But the Lord showed me that's the day I promised I would never trust anyone again. that little girl could handle it when these broken men left. But the one nice man who gave her some hope left, and this little heart said, no more. And from that point on, I didn't seem to fit in being straight, but I also didn't seem to really fit in even gay, because I cannot open my heart to anyone because it's shut down. But so for 4 years, I lived that life. And at that 4th year mark, I remember I'm just thinking, I was going into the gay bar and I thought there must be something more to life than this. And it wasn't the homosexuality. At that time, I also had other promises in my life, and promises that you make in pain affect you even after you're a Christian, unless you bring those things to the Lord and allow Him to heal the pain that caused that. And so
Well, you said you had promises in your life. What does that mean?
Yes. So one of them was, I will never trust anybody, which came through that man.
Oh, these are promises, like unconscious promises?
Inner vows.
Yes.
Yeah.
We call them inner vows. Or to my mom, I said, I will never be like my mother. I would never be weak like her. I will never let a man do what I saw men do to my mom. And so what am I doing? I'm solidifying independence inside of my heart, into my soul. And so I also had a inner vow that I would make it in life. My mom was so poor. We were so poor. And I thought, I will not be like that. And so in high school, I took cosmetology. I was the top of the class, but I thought, I don't want to do that. Then my dad said, take robotics. When I graduated from high school, that was the big thing. And so I took robotics, top of my class. Like the inner vow, I'm going to make it, was being fulfilled.
So very driven.
Oh, absolutely. And so then at 18-ish, I was the first lab technician, a woman, in General Motors. That's a big car company in America. And so I'm really fulfilling that life promise. And so that's when I walked into that bar and I said, there must be something more to life than this. I was not at rock bottom when I found Jesus. I made so much money. I had so many friends, and I thought something's missing. And so then I started asking God. We were brought up Catholic, but my mom, of course, was the partier. So we went mostly Christmas, Easter, just more word of mouth kind of Catholics. But I started praying. Now, all my life, I did pray. My Hail Mary and my Our Fathers. It's what I learned from a young girl.
Why did you start praying?
Because there must be something more to life than this. And I started asking God, what is life all about? Why do people go to church? Because, I went to the Catholic Church once in a while, and I thought, well, there's nothing different between us and them, me and them. And then I said, is there a Jesus? And what does it matter anyways? And these were 4 questions, and I truly was praying them. I meant them. I was not, for the first time, I think I was praying a heart prayer instead of a memorized prayer. And I asked God these questions, and about a month later, it happened to be Good Friday. And so Catholics, for Good Friday, you would sit usually 3 hours in the church reflecting on Jesus' death. But it was about the last 15 minutes. It was about 2:45, and I said to my mom, I happened to be at home at this time, and I said, let's go to church. And she probably thought, you, the gay rebellious daughter, because I would never want to go to church when they went to church. And it wasn't that I was hating God. It was just, I was one of those kind of people that if I went, I wanted to go because I wanted to go, not out of form. And so I said to my mom, let's go. And we went. And all I can explain to this day is that when I walked into that church, as soon as I walked in, this sad feeling came into my heart, like someone that you knew died, that kind of feeling. And I thought, well, that's strange. You go to church and nothing happens. And then I sat in the pew with my mom sitting next to me. And at the front of the church was a life-size wooden cross. I'll never forget it. No Jesus on it, just a life-size wooden cross where you're supposed to think about his death. And when I looked up at that cross, the only way I can explain it to this day, it was like a TV screen in front of me, though it was not a TV screen. I saw Jesus dying on the cross as if it was really happening. It was a vision, a whatever you want to call it. But I saw it, and I thought, I cannot tell this to my mom. She'll think I'm crazy or I'm on something because, I did a lot of partying back then. And so I'm watching Jesus die. And I realized in 1 second's time, God answered those questions. It isn't about church. It's about him. He is real. This is what life's all about. This is the answer. And I don't know how, other than when God shows you something, you recognize it. And so then at 3:00, I went out the aisleway to cross myself, because that's the way Catholics do, to go and pay our respects and then come back to our seats. And as soon as I went out the aisleway, all these tears start coming to my eyes, and I'm thinking, why am I crying? And my mom's behind me, so I don't brush away the tears because I don't want her to ask. And to this day, I still don't understand why I was crying, other than I think now I was feeling the love of God. And all my life, I believed there was a God, but I thought he had his big finger down on my life of judgment.
Condemning you.
Yes. And I knew my life was not right. I was homosexual. I stole. I drank. I swore. I did so many wrong things. I was a hard-hearted person. And up until this point, no one ever told me about Jesus Christ. I never knew that you're to give your life to him. And I always wonder what a Christian must have thought as I walked by as this very butchy, hard woman. They probably thought, ooh, I'm scared of her and I'm not about to talk to her. But I always wonder what would have happened if somebody just would have took the time to tell me about Jesus. I have no idea, because no one did. But so I came back, I knelt down, and I put my head down just so my mom wouldn't see these tears falling. And then God speaks to me. All my life, I never knew God could speak to anybody. I never heard of this. And I'll never forget the words. And he said, Donna, you looked everywhere else for love, but I loved you and I died for your sins. And no one ever told me he loved me.
You're listening to The Story. Today, Eric Scatterbo is once again chatting with Donna and Tom Cole, who are sharing their life journeys. So far today, we've mostly been hearing Donna's story about her struggles with same-sex attraction. Next, we'll hear the impact Christ has had on her life and how she eventually meets and marries Tom. All that and more when we return.